Okay, here we are, and it's time to go over to Hong Kong and say hello to our friend and colleague Yoichi Shimatsu, who has contributed so very, very much in this last year to our understanding, and I think more than that even, our empathy to the people and the whole culture that has been decimated and will continue to show more and more signs of imploding the Japanese culture in the months and years ahead. It is a living tragedy unfolding before our eyes in living color. Unfortunately, most of us over here in this country will never get to see it unless you're watching this particular website or listening to this program, because the Zionist Nuclear Regulatory Commission and all the other Zionist entities here block the news out almost entirely. Yoichi, hello, welcome back.
Well, thank you, Jeff. Yeah, we are right at the cusp of the anniversary of the start of the Fukushima disaster. Of course, the disaster continues.
Yes, indeed.
Saturday marks only the start of a disaster, which will continue for decades to come, and perhaps longer than many decades. And hopefully, I think the great worry that we have is that this disaster is not like a self-contained thing that has a beginning and an end. It could actually spawn, and it is spawning, many other types of disasters, not just to human health, but to the Earth's very environment and the survival of life on Earth. Not just human life, but all forms of life it is threatening. And so I call it a Pandora's box before. It triggers other disasters which continue on and on and on. The Fukushima, the whole event, is certainly not contained just within Japan. I think one of the real problems of something like an anniversary like that is that the mass media, the big magazines and networks, they try to contain this into one little region of Japan as if it's something very, very local, which it's not. It's a global disaster, especially for the Northern Hemisphere, but all over the world, including places like Australia, New Zealand. It affects probably everyone on this planet, and the effects are ongoing. There are more surprises to come. So I think this is how we've been trying to look at it, and as you said, the media has kept a lid on it. The government's kept a lid on it. Agencies which are in charge, whether of nuclear power, or more recently the NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, which is the U.S. Weather Service, has put a lid on the causes of these tornadoes, these unprecedented tornadoes that ripped apart the center of the United States. In fact, in the East Coast even, there's nothing like that. So I think, there's been a lid on what, the dangers of nuclear power unleashed.
Absolutely.
What that high energy can do. Huh?
Yeah. Yes. Now, you see a linkage between some of the aberrant weather, such as your tornadoes, and the ozone hole, and, of course, Fukushima, and HAARP as well. And we're not talking about HAARP as being the cause of the earthquake. We're talking about HAARP as doing something else in the upper atmosphere, which contributes.
Sort of an amplifier. HAARP is kind of an amplifier, a kind of a superhighway on which these radioactive particles can travel. So it acts as an amplifier. And, I've been saying this for the last several shows that, that I think, in fact, for many, many shows, that the radiation out of Fukushima is extraordinary. It's up in the upper atmosphere. It travels faster than anyone imagined through the upper jet stream, and that is highly charging the upper atmosphere. It's doing things that we just probably haven't ever been done to Earth since some meteorite bombardment of millions and millions of years ago.
Yes.
And that the Earth's upper atmosphere cannot sustain this kind of high energy. And we've seen the opening of an unprecedented ozone hole, which NOAA is going to launch a satellite with the Europeans. The satellite's name is Suomi, which is a Finnish word. I've been to Finland. It's a Finnish word, which indicates that the Europeans are very much worried about what's happening with this ozone hole that's opened over the Arctic Circle. We've seen Scandinavia with an unusually warm summer, which has nothing to do with the standard causes of global warming, as I said, carbon dioxide, because it's not a very much of a carbon-emitting economy up there. They use hydropower. We're seeing possible drought coming up because of a lack of rain over there. We've seen massive green, very dark green, unusually dark green northern lights over the Arctic, like people have never seen before. These blotches of light. And also, we predicted that, the radiation combined with the electromagnetic manipulation done by systems like HAARP, the electromagnetic field, are going to cause more floods, more storms, more cyclones, and certainly tornadoes would fit into that category of cyclones. That basically, I went to school in the American Midwest, and I once drove through a town called Rushville, Indiana. And it was very famous because half the town was gone from a tornado. It's actually called Rushville. It's a funny story. In Hoosierland in Indiana, no foreign name is ever pronounced properly because of the U.S. government's massive suppression of the German community there, German immigrants there in Indiana during World War I. Okay? So everyone there had to go into denial of the fact of their homeland because of this huge pressure, and the pressure was coming from the highest levels of the Wilson government. People like famous people like Colonel House, Woodrow Wilson, who settled World War I, and who were basically the people who inspired the founding of the Council on Foreign Relations. Okay, and you talk about Zionists. Yeah, there was a hand in that in World War I, and the German community there in Indiana was a real victim of that. Met many German families invited their homes for dinner.
Oh yeah.
And it was something that they had to keep in the closet, and so this area, unfortunately, besides this cultural disaster they suffered, they got hit by tornado, which was a giant one. Rushville half wiped out. The one we just saw hit Henryville is like 100 times larger. Okay, we're talking about something that was history way back then.
Yes.
Now pales. It's just a footnote compared to what happened in the last week, and that is not in a natural event, folks, because tornadoes are based on heat energy. Okay, the heat energy, a rising heat, this is basically moist, wet heat rising from the ground and interacting with the colder air of the upper atmosphere. Well, the ground temperature in Henryville was 30 degrees Fahrenheit. That's below freezing point. Okay,
that's amazing.
That's below zero centigrade.
Yeah,
There's no heat arising.
Yep.
So whatever caused those tornadoes was a form of energy that is not heat, and that is electromagnetic. Basically electromagnetic forces caused by the combination, as you mentioned earlier, of Fukushima, the HAARP missile defense systems, the overactive solar flares and all that. All this electromagnetic energy converging over North America and causing this massive, in a certain sense, unpredictable disaster. In the sense that it's a Pandora's box. We don't know. We know what's coming. We don't know what particular form it would take. It took the form of these tornadoes,
yes,
and hailstones the size of softballs raining down on these people, and a few miraculous cases of kids surviving, thank God. But it's just part of this ongoing disaster, and there's more to come. This is just only the beginning. 1 year after, only the beginning of a series of unfolding disasters that is being wreaked upon this planet.
When you look at the Fujita scale, the F scale of hurricane wind embedded in a tornado, I guess, the winds are hurricane strength, but even more. If you go all the way up to an F10 or thereabouts, you're approaching the speed of sound. That's amazing. When you think about that, it's 700 miles an hour.
Any faster, you break the sound barrier.
In the internal core of that tornado, and it surpasses 250 mile an hour hurricane winds by a factor of 3. It's just astounding.
And then it's coming from the north, going south, so it's coming from even colder temperatures without this rising heat. So it could not be heat energy. It's not a standard natural tornado. This is an artificially induced tornado, several of them whipping through the United States, going vast distances, 90-some sightings, right? I don't know how many towns destroyed, people losing everything. It just blasted these people. It's a nuclear force tornado that hit. And this is only the first. Okay, that is, I think, there's a lot more things. The temperatures rise. True, the jet stream will retreat, but as you notice, the jet stream's been down far south of where it normally is this year. It's been pushed southward. We've had all these massive rain, floods, rain, cold weather, all these just erratic symptoms in North America that have never been seen before, and certainly not the cause of a standard carbon dioxide buildup and all that. And I'm certainly, I travel in Southeast Asia a lot, as you know. I don't like carbon dioxide because they do burn all the forest litter. The loggers set fire to forests to clear them out. So, I'm definitely no fan of carbon dioxide. I would like to see a lot less of it in the atmosphere. But that certainly is not the cause of this kind of these catastrophes, these catastrophic tornadoes and cyclones that are happening.
Now, let's go to Tokyo here. We have a city, and honestly, I run out of words to describe this. How can it be that Tokyo decided to import all radioactive debris from Fukushima to the northeast, bring it into Tokyo, burn it in over 20 different incinerators, cover the whole damn city with radioactive isotopes? They don't even identify the debris when they bring it in. They burn it, the stuff goes up, it comes down. The city already has 25 times or more of the mandatory Chernobyl evacuation levels of radioactive isotopes. What are they doing? What is going on there?
Well,
what are they doing?
Consider the name TEPCO. Tokyo Electric Power Company, the Fukushima reactor.
They're killing 30 million people.
Dedicated for Tokyo.
They're killing 30 million people.
They're sacrificing their own customers, but they have nowhere else to go because they want to incinerate this stuff. They can't store it because they have no place to store it.
Why burn it in Tokyo, though? Why not burn it up in the north?
That's where the largest incinerators are.
Yeah, I understand, but they can
get it.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, they want to get the stuff into the jet stream, away.
They're sending it over here.
That has been happening. It will continue happening, and it's contributing. That continues to contribute. Not all of that radiation that we're seeing in the jet stream, obviously, is not just coming from Fukushima. A lot of it is a lot pure, just hardcore radiation, but we're seeing tons and tons of other radiation, lifted by the heat from the incinerators. These are very tall chimneys that are coming out and going right up into the jet stream and coming and just, basically putting a pall over North of America. It's just tragic that this disaster is being exported. The U.S. government, the Canadian government are tight-lipped. They don't dare say a thing. And that Canada's a major provider of uranium to Japan. The United States, of GE technology in the United States, was implicated in this weapons development at Fukushima, which has made this disaster so much worse. So, Tokyo Electric Power Company is more powerful than the government of Tokyo, the metropolitan government. And the governor of Tokyo, Yoichi Shimatsu, a man who wanted to nuke the United States. Okay, this is a man who wanted revenge on the United States for whatever happened in World War II. An absolute.
Well, he's getting away with it now, isn't he?
He's the governor. Yeah, he's the governor of Tokyo, and one of the men who was enthusiastic sponsors of a nuclear-armed Japan to get revenge for whatever happened. Which we all have to learn that you got to turn the page in history, right? If you start living with revenge on your mind, you become something like the Zionists. 2,000 years ago, this happened to my ancestor, and therefore you're going to die. I mean, this is madness, okay? Yeah. And this man is infected with a similar madness.
Oh yeah, good point.
It's very sad. It's very, very sad that that this is happening in Tokyo. The other thing are these mysterious deaths all over Japan. There's just so many of them now. That people know there's an epidemic of people just collapsing. And I just had to write to some people in the German church who have, the churches in Japan. They're wondering what's happening. People are dropping, left and right there.
Yeah.
It's basically cesium builds up in your muscles, especially in your heart because of the flow of blood. Yep. But, the Japanese people tend to be small of stature, and they have some of the smallest hearts in Japan. In fact, for heart operations, they've had to redesign stents to be much smaller than the stents used in the rest of the world. So people, I've had a cardiologist tell me that he's even had some women who have women in Japan who have hearts no larger than a bird's heart. So they're very, very small. So it gathers around the heart. It not only kills muscle in the sense that once it's radioactive isotopes are ingested, they release gamma rays inside your cell. They break up your DNA. that DNA cannot be removed from your cell by any means, so the cell basically dies. It atrophies and dies, and you have dead muscle tissue. The other thing is that cesium is chemically similar to potassium, which is very important for controlling your heart muscles, the nerves and the heart muscles, that whole signaling response that maintains your heartbeat. So once there's enough cesium, it doesn't take a lot, replacing the potassium in your heart, you're basically going to have very bad rhythm, basically an off-rhythm heart, which, basically leads to palpitations, respiratory problems, and fainting in people. That's why people faint, and while they collapse, they die of a heart attack. So this is what's been happening all over Japan. And, right now, the provincial governments are calling these rumors, false rumors. Unfortunately, the doctors don't believe so. About 80 doctors have left Fukushima province. They realize it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
There's nothing they can do to help.
Sure.
They're only going to contribute their own death, and they're better off being at some distance from Fukushima, where over the long run they may be able to treat the victims once the people that really finally decide to wake up that the situation is unsustainable, that they cannot move back to their villages, that they have to do something else. This is a irreversible, irrevocable tragedy, both the tsunami, the fact that they built on landfill along the shore. That's got to go back to lagoons and estuaries. There's no other thing. And the radiation, that's not going to go away. If we're looking at 33-year half-life of cesium, good luck to the plant still bleeding radiation. And uranium has got a 700,000 year half-life, and then chunks of uranium are just blown out of the plant. So we're talking about, for the duration, it's just going to be a parkland. And the people have to come to terms with that. Things cannot go back to the way they were. And the one thing we can do, we can't save ourselves, but we can save future generations by not being self-centered, not looking back, but trying to move forward with this reality, try to comprehend the reality, this catastrophe, the nature of this catastrophe we face. And that's why I talk to you, Jeff, is that we've got to just keep pushing this message. This thing is beyond normal human powers of comprehension. Most people didn't get the education they need to understand what's going on and how severe it is to life, to DNA, to the very core of your life.
Indeed, indeed. We have, unfortunately, nothing to look forward to except the collapse of Building 4 and the spent fuel pool there, which is coming. This structure itself can't last much longer. It's obviously the neutron flux is deteriorating. The steel, the infrastructure is rotting away at a nuclear level, an atomic level, and it's going to fall. And when that happens, that will be the end of Tokyo. And will the people leave then? I don't know.
Yeah, well, a lot of people are going to die. That's obviously clear. It's very tough. I was minimally exposed, but still have relapses. The immune system much weaker than it was, even though I'm taking a lot of herbs and all. I can bounce back still, so I'm not, terminal or anything like that. But even relatively short amounts of exposure have really severe effects. People that are walking around crippled. The other thing is it does impair your mental faculties if you're exposed long enough. People do not have normal response time. Their blood flow is slowing down. Blood is not getting to their brain. They cannot make decisions, necessary decisions. Or let's say, again, I said, your own survival is not as important as trying to protect the future of humankind, of humanity, that we have to, deal with this crisis out of a sense of responsibility that our generation completely screwed up by believing in what they call, now even the government in Japan calls it the myth of nuclear safety. Okay, the myth of nuclear safety. We've got to undo that damage, shut these plants down, contain this fuel, and put an end to this monstrosity that we created. And that's what our generation must do. It doesn't matter how many of us die or suffer grievous effects as a result of that. We must clean up after ourselves, because there is a thing called the future, and if we don't do it, there will be no future. Not just with the human species. We're talking about the next intelligent species may not come about, folks, after us. We may be consuming a lot of other organisms to an early end.
Well, if nothing else, this catastrophe, and catastrophe doesn't come close, this catastrophe has shown unequivocally that Japan can get along just fine without nuclear power. And for decades, the Japanese people were told that they couldn't.
Yeah. Well, this is a huge myth. Obviously, there's only 2 reactors right now operating in Japan on the 54. There's only 2 reactors operating, and the economy is picking up some steam. So obviously, we did not need those other 52 reactors, and we probably don't need those next 2 either. So, the proof's in the pudding. We can live without nuclear power.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah. We can't live with it. That's the bottom line.
Well, we're going to have to live with that for a while. It's a necessary evil for now until we can come up with a better way. And instead of trying to pass laws against everything, we should be developing technology and testing them, and it takes time. We've got to work towards the future. Don't look back. Keep working towards the future and investing in that future. But I'm afraid, we live in a culture of convenience. People aren't concerned. They look after themselves. And, the social order that used to hold people together has disintegrated completely,
Indeed.
Under this whole notion of globalism.
Gone.
The globalists looked at anything resembling society as a threat to their authority, did everything they can just do to disband any society that still has legs, and turn us into a bunch of anonymous, alienated individuals who are utterly powerless. But guess what? Globalism is powerless. That's what Fukushima shows. That they are powerless against this disaster. For a year on, they have done absolutely nothing. They cannot stop it. They cannot deal with its effects. They cannot tell the public the truth about what's happening. All they can do is hide the facts and pretend like it's not happening. So I'm sorry, that form of government, this whole global myth of globalism, has also utterly failed. And then the 2 are linked. Nuclear power and globalism are very, very much linked. They came out of the same set of thinking. That advanced technology can solve all our problems, make our life easier, and make things like conflict and struggle and hard work would make all that obsolete. We can just walk around like God, and take it easy. Well, that world, I'm afraid, does not exist anywhere, and not even on Wall Street.
No, it doesn't. Yoichi, thank you for being here again and for everything you've contributed, and you mean a great deal to an awful lot of people. Thank you, my friend.
Well, next time it's year 2. All right? Year 2.
Okay. All right. Be well. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Take care. All right. Yoichi Shimatsu, and just a wonderful human being. All right. Thanks to all of you for being here tonight, and you are appreciated. We'll be back tomorrow night. Have a good night's sleep and a good day tomorrow. Talk soon.